Welcome, and thank you for attending the 2020 Nebraska Community Aid and Juvenile Justice Conference. We are excited to bring you some great speakers, both locally and from across the country. Please check the chat box for important announcements, including information pertaining to continuing education hours. On the top left of the screen, you will see that you are in the main hall on the Interact page. The Interact page is where you will be able to see the presentations. The agenda with speaker information, documents, and other links can be found by clicking Agenda at the top middle of the screen. To return to presentations, go back to Interact on the top left. To navigate between the main hall, Breakout Room 1 and Breakout Room 2, you can click on the location name on the top left where it says Location Main Hall, or click on the 3 vertical dots at the top left of the screen in the purple box. Again, thank you for joining us this morning and have a great conference.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Don Arp, Executive Director of the Nebraska Crime Commission. Thank you for attending the 2020 Nebraska Community Aid and Juvenile Justice Conference. Juvenile justice is a critical issue to the Commission. That's why I founded the Juvenile Program and Intervention Division in the Commission to better align our teammates, our resources, and your efforts every day to drive research-based interventions with juveniles and keep them out of the juvenile justice system. Thank you for your commitment to day in and day out to juvenile justice. It is nothing short of inspiring what you do every day. Your willingness today to show up, engage, learn, and tackle issues of social distancing shows that fortitude that we need for this field. In these challenging times, I'm reminded of a favorite quote from President Lyndon Johnson. Yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or to lose. Your work with juvenile justice is winning our tomorrows. Thank you for your dedication. Thank you for attending this conference, and have a great day.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Nebraska Community Aid and Juvenile Justice Conference. My name is Sean Flowerday, and I serve as the chair of the Lancaster County Board of Commissioners. The topics addressed in our conference here are some of the most vital we face as a community and are personally very near and dear to my heart. As prior to serving in public office, I was employed for 7 years, first as a correctional caseworker and then as an administrator for a statewide child welfare service provider. Never doubt that what you do has deep and lasting impacts on the lives of the people we are here to serve. The focus of our conference is best practices for prevention and early intervention to keep our kids and our communities safe. The conference tracks are focused on education, prosecution and law enforcement, diversion, and behavioral health and trauma-informed care. Live sessions are open to everyone, and recordings of all sessions will be available to everyone who registered after the conference. I encourage each of you to take advantage of the easy availability of these sessions. Over the next 5 days, local and national speakers will focus on topics such as evidence-based alternative responses for diversion practices, engaging families, partnering to keep kids in school and out of court, police and youth partnerships, crisis respite services, and addressing the needs of youth who run, just to name a few. Throughout this conference, and in each session you attend, I would like to challenge you to ask yourself, how can these principles, programs, or ideas be used to help kids in my community? We appreciate the attendees' dedication to continuing their knowledge of best practices to serve our youth. Lancaster County is especially grateful for the continued support of the Crime Commission in ensuring our counties have an opportunity for continued education for the work we are tasked with. In light of the murder of George Floyd and the ongoing conversation our nation is currently engaged in regarding race, this conference was planned for you using a racial equity lens, from the opening panel to the keynote speaker. The impact race has on the decisions we make cannot be ignored, and it is to be brought to the very forefront of this conference. And lastly, with a heavy heart, Lincoln and Lancaster County has endured the loss of one of our own police officers, killed in the line of duty by a youth under court supervision. Evidence-based programming and effective supervision strategies have never been as important to us as they are right now. As I said before, never forget the important work you all do. Investigator Mario Herrera will be remembered as a father, a friend, a veteran police officer who served our community with integrity and honor. Here's to you, Mario.
We're hearing officer down at 32555 line, officer down 32555 line. Suspect fleeing southbound from 32555 line. Medical's coming for the officer down.
Man down, I'm bleeding out. There's no time, so please hear me out. These are the last few words that I'd like to say to you all. This is my last call. Tell my wife I love her, and that I won't be home tonight. Thank her for those long, hard years that we tried to get it right. And tell her I'll be waiting after she makes it through it all. This is my last call. But ask her to forgive me. Tell her I'm sorry. That I can't be the man that she's gonna be. Tell her I'll be waiting where the winter meets the fall. This is my last call. Tell my children that I love them. Oh, yeah, daddy always loved them so. Tell them to hold their mother tight and to never let her go. Tell them I'll always be watching and looking over them through it all. This is my last call. For those who serve beside me and who held that thin blue line, stand tall, stand strong, and hold your head up high. I'm sorry I let you down today, but please know I gave my all. This is my last call. I'd like to think I saved a few good lives, but I couldn't save them all. This is my last call. Yeah, I'd like to think I saved a few good lives, but I couldn't save my own. This is my last call.
1205. 3 David, 1205. 3 David, 1205. Investigator Mario Herrera served 23 years as a Lincoln police officer, where he faithfully served the citizens of our community. 1205 has answered his last call. End of watch, September 7th, 2020. He will always be remembered and greatly missed by all.
3 David, 1205, come in.
Well, good morning. My name is Jeff Blymeister, and before we all get started, I just want to thank the Jenny and so many others, Sarah Hoyle, that allowed Mario's memory to be honored in that way. I apologize. I've seen that video multiple times, and it still drives a pretty emotional response. But and as Sean Flowerday mentioned in the opening, this is an important part of this conference in the next 5 days. And so many of the strategies that all of us work on are prevention and intervention. Prevention of acts of violence that thankfully are an isolated incident, but yet can change the dynamic for, as it did in this instance, for Mario, for his wife, Carrie, and for their 4 kids. And it really goes back to these multifaceted approaches and using evidence-based strategies and data to try to intercede prior to tragedies like this occurring. So once again, my thanks, my appreciation to everyone that has responded and supported Mario, his family, and our entire agency. And we look forward to speaking with you some more on this panel discussion.
Please route outside office or high school reference physical disturbance. I'll be interrupted.
What's going on, man? Officer Davis, LSD. What's going on, bud?
What do you care?
I care because I got called here. What's going on? What's going on, man? I'm trying to help you, man.
Why do you want to help me?
That's my job. What's going on, man? Just talk to me.
No.
Why not? I'm just trying to help you, man. I'm not trying to have you make the same mistakes I did. I've been in your shoes, dude. What's going on? What happened?
I don't know. You tell me.
I don't know. I got called here because you got in a fight with somebody, so What's going on? What happened today? What was it? Good buddy of yours? Someone you don't know? Somebody that picks on you? No, I'm gonna have to call your parents now, right?
Well, I've been fighting with them, so.
Well, what? What's going on there?
You can go ahead and ask him.
What's a good phone number for him? I gotta call him, so the more helpful you are with me, the better it's gonna help you, man. I've been in your situations. It's not fun. The more you help me, the better I can help you.
Okay.
What's a good phone number for your mom?
402. 615. 3207.
3207? What's her name?
Virginia.
Virginia? What's your address, bud?
1906. Fuller Street.
Okay, what's your name?
Howard Georgia.
Repeat it for me, bud.
Virginia.
Your name?
Oh, Alfredo.
Alfredo? What's your last name, Alfredo?
Zuniga.
Zuniga? What's your date of birth, Alfredo? What's your date of birth?
11/22/06.
Okay. Alrighty. So, I'll get in contact with your parents. We'll figure out. I'll have them come down here. We'll talk about what's going on. You sure you don't want to tell me anything about what happened today?
No.
You sure? Positive?
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty, man. I just got off the phone with your mom and dad. What can we do to make today better? I mean, today has been something, to say the least.
Well, if you could help with my parents, that'll be fine.
Okay. As in what?
Well, like, I want them to have trust with me, because, like, they usually tell me to leave right after practice, home, eat, do my homework, stay there.
Okay.
So, like, I'm trying to have fun, trying to go out to places with my friends.
Okay. What are you doing to build their trust?
Well, basically do listen to what they said, because Hispanic parents are way, like, above the level. Like, they choose to do one thing, and then you choose to do another thing.
Yeah.
And then if you don't do it right, they make you redo it again, even though you're tired of doing it and over and over and over.
Both my parents are from Mexico. I understand. I get it.
Yeah.
So, what can we do to help fix today? How can we change today? I hear you're a smart kid, man.
Well, I would like to go out with my friends, because they asked me to go hang out with them. So I told them that I can't because of my mom.
What do you do at home to try to help build your mom's trust and your dad's trust?
Well, I do chores. Since my mom is having a baby, I clean for her, I wash the dishes for her, and I do the restroom.
Yeah.
Mostly, like, always behind her, make sure she's okay.
Okay. What about your dad?
Well, he's mostly like at work, so every time he comes here, I have to be here already, so he doesn't go out and look for me after practice.
Yeah.
And, like, I have to help him with the car, clean with him in the car, or, like, when he needs help, like, at work, I have to go help him.
Yeah. Have you tried having a peaceful conversation with them about saying, hey, Mom, I know I've done all this today. Can I spend 2 hours with my friends? I've done all my homework. I'm done with practice. I have nothing else to do. I've cleaned the house.
No.
You haven't done any of that?
I tried, but they don't believe in that stuff. They say there's no friends.
Yeah, and I get it. But, and I grew up in LA, man. My parents are strictly, they have that work, school, that's it. And sports. That was my life growing up.
That's my life right now.
That's literally my life. What I overcame was realizing that there's more in the future. If it wasn't for sports and me focusing so much on school and sports, I wouldn't be where I would be right now. Sports got me to college. You understand that? I didn't get myself to college. Sports is what got me to college. Sports is what got me through college. Sports is what got me this job. Okay?
Yeah.
I hear you're a heck of a runner. I heard you're smart.
Yeah.
Athletic, smart, goes a long way. Me, I was athletic. Not smart. Athletic, yes. That's why I ended up at a small college in Nebraska. I could have gone to Navy, to the Naval Academy. I wasn't smart enough for the Naval Academy. You know why?
Why?
Because I was doing what you were doing. Fighting with my parents, messing around, partying, doing dumb stuff. If I would have done stuff differently when I was younger, in high school, actually done my homework, studied for an ACT, and spend more time on school, I would be at an Ivy League college. But was it where I wanted to be? No, not at all. But it still got me to college, and it still got me a degree. Now, what do you want to do?
Well, what I'm planning, like during high school, I want to during high school, I want to graduate, go to college, and get a degree, and I want to be an actor.
You want to be an actor?
And then move on to being a teacher, coach, cross country, and wrestling.
Well, there's a lot of really good schools in Nebraska. A lot of really good teaching schools in Nebraska. And a lot of those teaching schools have really good cross-country teams. Midland has a really good cross-country team. Wayne State, really good cross-country team. UNL, really good cross-country. How are things between all three of you guys? Is it fights when you guys argue, or is it more just you not listening to your mom and dad?
Well, I listen to my parents, but when I do something wrong, they make it a big argument.
Okay.
But when I talk back to them, because parents don't like being wrong.
Right.
So even though when they're wrong, and I know they're wrong, and I keep telling them I'm doing the right thing, they make it a big argument, and they start fighting and stuff.
Yeah. And we have some resources we could help with that.
What kind of resources?
I have some notes down on my notebook for you. Community partnership, that's one of our main ones we work with, or crisis response team. The crisis response team is actually a group of people that will come to your house, come home with you, sit down, you, mom, dad, brother, sister, whoever's in the house. They'll figure out what's going on between you guys. They'll find out ways to help you guys cope with each other, help you guys trust each other, and create a better family bond. So you go, hey mom, I've done all of this. I've done all the dishes you wanted me to do. I've mowed the yard. I've done all my homework. They will help try to help your parents understand that kids are going to be kids. Kids are going to want to hang out with their friends. What this resource company does is they try to create a better bond in the community. You understand?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, that's about it.
That's about it? Okay. Well, when your parents get here, we'll talk more about this crisis center, okay?
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everybody. Denise, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to add to that.
That was a video that my daughter created. She's 14 here at Schuyler High School with the help of the Schuyler Police Department. And that's her version of what she would like to see an interaction between a law enforcement officer and a youth to be. And so, Pat, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Pat Condon. I'm the Lancaster County Attorney here in Lincoln, Nebraska. I think that is a typical what we see here in Lincoln and how our officers handle calls when they go out to the schools and meet with students who they've been called out to the school on. I've put together just a brief little PowerPoint here that I'll have Jenny key up for us and kind of show you how we go about dealing with the youth in Lancaster County here. So, Jenny, if you want to go ahead with that, we'll go on to the next slide. Then we'll go about a couple more clicks there, Jenny. Okay, let's stop there. This is one of the things that I think we really need to look at. And part of what we're trying to do here in Lancaster County is change this perception, this school to prison pipeline. We have that. We have to change that perception and change those talking points, because that's not what it is, and that's not what we're about here in Lancaster County. How about a couple more clicks here, Jenny? So what we call it is the classroom to courtroom pathway. And that's what we're going to talk about, or what I'm going to show you here, a little bit of what we're doing here in Lancaster County. So about another 3 clicks, Jenny. So here in Lancaster County, when the offense is investigated by law enforcement, a referral is made to the county attorney, and then that student then, if you want to say, is put into that pipeline, they are put into that pipeline. So we look at that, and then let's go 4 clicks, Jenny, if we could, please. So, first thing was we are diverting these students out of that pipeline. The case is screened by a prosecutor in our office. We look to see if there's even enough evidence to proceed with charges. If not, we do not go forward. If there is, there's a risk assessment that's done by our human resource people here. That's sent back to our office, and then we again review it and determine what's the best way to proceed. If we decide it's best to proceed with a warning letter, that's all we do. We just send a warning letter. There's no further involvement. That's usually when the parents have taken the child maybe back to the Walmart where he shoplifted, paid it off, apologized to Walmart. The family is really interacting and doing things the way they're supposed to. So that's one of the things we look at. All right, can we get another 4 clicks there, please? And we have other programs, our Restore program and our SAMI program. These are school-based diversions. We want to keep the kids in the school, so these are not courtroom. They're school-based. And what this does, SAMI is our students with alcohol and marijuana problems, and Restore is dealing with students who have been involved in fights or disturbing the peace. So what we try to do is we look to restorative justice practices in those programs and get those students involved back in the school, back with the teachers and with the other individuals that they were involved with as far as an assault or things like that. So we really look to do that and keep them in the schools. Our truancy-based programs, we also have a truancy court. That's actually truancy where we keep the truancy program in the schools. In fact, my chief deputy for our juvenile division actually goes to all the surrounding schools during the school sessions and works on the truancy program. All right, another 4 clicks, Jenny. Once they get into that if SAMI doesn't work or restore, then we do have our pretrial, our standard pretrial diversion, which is through our office, through my office at the county attorney's office. That's about a 90-day program. If that doesn't work, or if they've been through pretrial once and they have some more trouble, we get them into the intensive pretrial program. That's about a 6-month program. Again, we're working with the schools and our community providers during those programs. All right, and then the next 4, please. And I put these in red because this is when the courtroom starts. And actually, everything that you see to the left of those red little cutouts there, all those things are done before we actually get somebody and we file charges and we put them into the courtroom system. After that, they can receive probation from the court, and they can be on probation for a number of years. If probation isn't working, it's a graduated sanction. They can go to out of place or out of home placement. And then I think, is there another slide there, Jenny? And then this is the other thing that I think we really need to concentrate on. In Nebraska, here in Nebraska, they don't go to prison. They go to Kearney, they go to Geneva, they go to the youth treatment centers that are set up through DHHS. And that's an important thing too. This is not a school to prison pipeline. This is a classroom to courtroom pathway, and it really gets us into where an individual, where a youth would go is not to prison, but to Kearney in the juvenile system. So that's one of the things I think we really need to look at and try to change those talking points and those perceptions. Okay, Jenny, the next. Here in Lancaster County, after we do the early assessments, about 598 of the 643 are referred completed assessments. And if you look at those outcomes, we no charge about 45%. The numbers don't quite add up. You kind of, I think it comes to 101 there, but so you see 45 are no charged. The other 45% goes through juvenile diversion, and then we only file on about 10% of our cases that are coming in through law enforcement. All right, Jenny. Restore, that's the program that I was talking about in the schools. You can see, I won't go through all those, but you can see what that program does, and it leads to less suspensions for those youths and through the participants. So it really is a successful program that we have going here in Lancaster County. All right, Jenny. As I said, our diversion programs, we've reduced our fees over 50%. We use a lot of community partners that help us with our diversion classes, our online courses. We're really trying to get diversion to where we're working with a little higher risk youth in diversion. You can see our numbers there. And one of the things that we try to do is in our diversion programs, in our school programs, really what we want to do is when we're getting into the court system, when we're getting those juveniles into probation and into the out-of-home placement, those are really the youth that really need that structure, that intense structure that they're getting. And that's what we're, so the schools, or excuse me, so the courts and diversion and probation are really working with the students that need it the most, with the youth that need it the most. And then we're really, those high-risk youths are what we're trying to concentrate our most resources on. All right. You can see our overall enrollment in our juvenile diversion programs. We really, beginning in 2016, we really started to look to enact those programs, and you can see how those have increased over the years and what our minority youth are involved in that. I think the thing that's important here is if you start programs like this, make sure you keep data. Data is so important. You have to know what the programs are doing and if they're having the effect or the desired effect that you want them to have. All right, the next one, please. You can see days in juvenile diversion. This is one of the things that we like to show. Usually if they get into the diversion program, it's going to be about 84 to 90 days is what they're going to be in diversion. The Nebraska average is about 126. So again, we're cutting down the youth's even interaction with the system. And I think that's always best if we can get them in and out of it very quickly, and that's what we try to do. All right. Successful discharge. You see, we have a very successful discharge from our juvenile diversion programs, above the state average. Again, I think it's due in large part to, one, the robust community partners that we have in this, and then also just our own juvenile juvenile division here, and with our courts and what they're doing. So the next, please. Now this is from referral of diversion to the diversion processing stage. I just put this in here. This is what we're trying to do. So when that comes into our office, we get the case set up. We send it over to diversion. They do an assessment that comes back to our office. That's at 23 days. As it comes back to our office, we make a determination whether or not what we're going to do with that individual, if they need to be referred for further diversion programs. If they are, we get them into referral and enrollment, and then enrollment to discharge. And then from the time that LPD refers somebody to our office and to the time they're out of diversion is approximately 116 days. So again, I think it's very important to do this, get these individuals into the program quickly. All our evidence-based practices show the quicker we can get them in there, the better chances we are to have success with them in those programs. All right, next slide, please. The juvenile then, if all else doesn't appear, if all else doesn't work, and if you remember that first slide where I show those two red outs that we have for individual or a youth in the court system, you know, that final one of out of home placement and then into the youth rehabilitation system, those things all must be exhausted before they move into that youth rehabilitation center. So probation, out of home placement, all that has to be exhausted before they go into the youth rehabilitation system. And then the other thing is once they do get into juvenile court, if we do file on them, I mean, and this is one of the important things of diversion, from the time we file an actual petition in juvenile court to perhaps any time of trial, you know, a juvenile in Lancaster County is probably going to be looking to be in the court system for 90 to 120 days before they really have any real access to the courts. So again, just keeping them in diversion, keeping them in school diversions or our pretrial diversion services, it really does help get them back into what they should be doing in a much quicker rate than going through the court proceedings. I think that ends my my presentation. If anybody has, Jenny, do we have anybody, any other speakers going forth here? Denise?
There was a question about assessments that were used, Pat, and for Sarah Hoyle actually placed an answer in the chat box about the Nebraska Youth Screen is commonly used for law enforcement referrals to assist in predicting levels of risk and intake needs. And the school refusal assessment is used for truancy referrals to determine why a youth is not attending school. If there was anything that you wanted to add to that.
Well, one, and again, I appreciate Sarah for answering that. Sarah and her group are very instrumental in our programs here with Lancaster County in our office. So I don't really have anything more in regards to that. Any other questions or comments?
Pat, one other question I see, do you track youth and the demographics that are in this system in more than one way?
You know, we actually right now we're in the process of a study that we're doing with Dr. Weiner from the university. We are tracking those youths. It's kind of, I think we've been doing it for about a year and a half maybe. So we are trying to do that, and it's on a whole list of different demographics. that we use and that are being used and that we're looking at in that study. So we are doing that. Sarah, I see there's a question about may we have access to the assessments and the assessment tools. Do you have, I'll let you weigh in a little bit on that. So yeah, yes, we will post those. We will get those to you.
Well, I think Pat just kind of talking a little bit about what Pat has been described in those earlier graphics. And I want to just share a few facts, and hopefully that will spur some more in-depth discussion. And once again, I just want to relay our commitment at the Lincoln Police Department in Lincoln and Lancaster County as a whole in these, these data-driven, evidence-based approaches. And as Pat mentioned, Sarah is an outstanding partner, as is the University of Nebraska. And so Lincoln is a community approaching about 300,000 people, because I see there's 176 people that are a part of this. Some may be familiar with Lincoln and others probably are not. Lincoln Public Schools, which we of course have a strong partnership with, has an enrollment of about 42,000 students. And so in preparation for this and for many of the other looks at what we're doing with juveniles, we took a glimpse back at the last 5 years. And so the number of juvenile referrals, juvenile citations, the things that Pat is referring to that eventually either come to him and then those processes are initiated, on average about 468 juvenile referrals on an annual basis for a student population of just over 42,000. So then we really need to go back to, okay, how many of these youth are actually being incarcerated or at least lodged at the Youth Assessment Center? And on average, it is 3 to 4. So 42,000 kids, about 468 referrals on an annual basis, and 3 to 4 of those annually are being lodged. And so I think that that's just a really remarkable statistic. And then we drill down further and we're looking at why. Why are the individuals initially being lodged at the Youth Assessment Center? Because like all others, we are focused on prevention and intervention. And so a brief description of some of those incidents recently were a violation of a protection order. And in Nebraska, a violation of a protection order has a mandatory incarceration, or not incarceration, but lodging element. And in this particular circumstance, the suspect had previously assaulted the victim, continued to harass the victim, and all of our safety planning measures with LPS were ineffective. Another was possession of methamphetamine with intent to distribute that was being sold on school campus. A third stole multiple vehicles, got into a pursuit with an officer, and ran into the school with a stolen loaded handgun. Another repeatedly harassed and assaulted an autistic student, then threatened to bring the gun to school and shoot anyone who witnessed and reported the incident. So those are some of the incidents, at least that are occurring here. And then we also drill down even further and we're asking ourselves, okay, of the calls for service that are being made at the schools, who is initiating those calls for service? Because I believe that there's this perception or this characterization that exists within society that it's the police that are actively patrolling the hallways, the parking lots, or something like that. And so of all of the referrals, or excuse me, of all of the calls for service, some leading to referrals, 1% are initiated by law enforcement, 1%. And the reality is that the majority of these calls for service, especially those leading to referrals, are coming from the administrators. And administrators or the kids themselves or the parents. And those are things too that we need to continue to talk about. And I'll stop, and if there's any questions, we can continue this. I'll turn it over to Denise and Chief Farber.
We did have one question, and I'll turn it over to either of you. Is this process specific to Lancaster County, or are these different activities utilized in other parts of the state? So is there statewide coordination? And if either of you wanted to respond to that.
I can respond, Pat, chime in, because we're talking about a lot of different things. So the processes being described here are, especially the statistics that I'm talking about, are very specific to Lincoln, the Lincoln Police Department, and Lincoln Public Schools. And I'll let Pat comment on the broader, what extends into Lancaster County.
Yeah, these are a lot of programs that we have developed here in Lancaster County ourselves that we're using. But the thing is most of these programs can be easily replicated in other areas. I mean, we're not, you know, the Restore and the SAMI programs. I mean, those are getting the use and using restorative justice practices that are well documented, and using those and having those students participate with that in the school. The same is true with our truancy programs. And again, just keeping the individuals in the schools and not putting them in the court system to begin with.
Awesome. Thank you. Everyone, please keep your questions coming. We really want this to be an interactive panel, and we absolutely welcome your questions. And if we missed a question, please pop it back up there again, or Jenny will try to keep us honest. Good morning, everyone from Schuyler, Nebraska. I'm sitting in Colfax County, and I'm at the Schuyler Police Department. My name is Denise Krotzel. I've been the Colfax County attorney for over 10 years. I'm here with Chief Robert Farber. We wanted to talk to you a little bit today from a rural perspective. Colfax County sits approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes straight west of Omaha. We face some different challenges. Specifically, we have no mental health providers in our county. We have no detox centers in our county. We have no drug and alcohol treatment offered in our county. We basically outsource any and all services for all of our youth that we receive. Colfax County is the home to a 2,200 person Cargill Meat Solutions packing plant. And we have some different challenges. We have a significant challenge with regard to diversity. Over 85% of our student population is free and reduced lunch qualifying. We speak over 18 different languages and dialects at any given time in our community. And many of our youth and our refugee populations are recent arrivals to the United States. When I first started this job, the general trend was that folks who were refugees from other countries or new arrivals would often go to larger communities, such as Lincoln and Lancaster County, or even Minneapolis, Minnesota, where they would have transition programs to help them to transition to life here in the United States. And then eventually they would make their way to our smaller communities. That doesn't seem to be the case nowadays. We're literally getting folks who are new arrivals straight from their country of origin. We have been very lucky to use the community-based aid programs to provide different resources in our community that we would not have but for community-based aid. We have a diversion program. We have a truancy and school intervention program, which is at Schuyler Central High School. And just this year, we've been able to start a mental health intervention program that will allow youth here in our community to receive mental health counseling. So our community has gotten creative as to how to compensate for not being able to have mental health providers right here located whose offices are in our community. And instead, what we've done is, in conjunction with CHI Hospital and the Schuyler Community Schools, as well as our local health department and Good Neighbor Clinic, we're able to bring in therapists into our schools 1 to 2 days a week. And through community-based aid, the Colfax County Attorney's Office and Colfax County has applied for vouchers so that we can use community-based aid dollars to make sure that all children have mental health counseling available to them at the school. So before this program, we would have to take a child out of school and transport them to either Fremont or Columbus. That was an hour there an hour for the session and an hour home. A child was losing a half a day of education a week because we didn't have mental health counseling here in our community. Thanks to Good Neighbor, as well as Good Life Counseling and other organizations who are working with us, now we're bringing counselors right here to our school, so our youth only misses 45 minutes, maybe an hour at the most of educational time. We previously had used our community-based aid dollars for electronic monitoring interventions and situations somewhat similar to what the chief had just referred to. No one enjoys putting children in detention. None of us wants to put children in detention, but there are certain situations where that absolutely is necessary. And so our area has really tried to use electronic monitoring as alternatives to detention if placement at home is still possible. Sometimes placement at home is not possible. However, we no longer have to ask for electronic monitoring money through community-based aid because we've decreased the number of youth that we have in detention for pre-adjudication issues to almost none. So we really appreciate all the help that we had received. I did want to point out very quickly, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chief Farber, and then we'll be happy to take questions, that Santiago, you had asked in the comments about the Nebraska Youth Screen and other tools, and I appreciated that. I think Amy or Sarah mentioned the Diversion Committee for the state of Nebraska is currently working on a standardized assessment tool for all diversion programs in the state of Nebraska. And there will be, I believe at noon tomorrow, that there is a session coming up about that whole issue. So for any of you who is interested, I would encourage you to tune in. I'm going to turn it over to Schuyler Police Chief Robert Farber.
Thank you, Denise. Schuyler is a real unique community, very diverse, as Denise has mentioned. I've been up here now close to 16 months. I come from Lincoln, Nebraska, where I worked under Chief Blymeister, many others for a number of years. And one of the things that first struck me when I came up here is the challenges we have with being able to communicate with the community, with the number of Latinos, recent arrivals, and just the immigrant population, and the different languages that are spoken. You really put stressors on the number of interpreters you have, your use of language line. You're constantly trying to figure out how you can communicate with that person that you're going to come into contact with. And most of our youth that we come into contact with through our school system, while they are bilingual generally, their parents aren't. And one of the things our school system does and has been doing really, really well is they have the Capturing Kids' Hearts program. And through that program that really is built on the idea of social contracts and the family and the school and the child working together to create an environment of success for the child. Because of that parental involvement at that early age, we have been able to piggyback on that, and the parents are very involved, and we don't have much of a problem getting parental involvement when we have a contact with a child, a juvenile. It is not difficult at all to call or make contact, use language line with a cell phone, or take an interpreter with you, and the parent will come down. You can make an appointment. They'll bring their child down. There's an incredible amount of parental cooperation here with their children. They're very involved with their kids here. And I think that's a testament to the school system and the Capturing Kids' Hearts program that's really installed that from really the elementary level up. And we've been able to benefit off that. While we don't have a school resource officer program up here, and things of that nature, we do have, and we enforce a lot of positive and want to have every contact with the kids to be one that that interaction is something that we can turn into that positive. And as you saw in the video with Officer Medina. Most of our officers are 2 to 3 years on. They're relatively young, and they're able to interact well with kids and young people. And several of them are bilingual, and that does help as well. Some of the other services we'll use is crisis navigators. They'll come in and we can contact them. They'll come into the home, help us out with a family in crisis. That's one of the referral agencies we use frequently. We have really low crime. Violent crime is very low. I think we lodged 3 children or juveniles in 2019, and those were mostly warrants. Generally, we cite and release even on felonies with youth up here in Schuyler.
Well, hey, I'll jump in and Bob, Denise, good to see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you
Good to
too.
see you.
There's a couple questions that came across, and one of those particular questions was how many or what percent when we're talking about juvenile referrals and specifically to the Lincoln Police Department are coming from outside of the school setting. And that is an outstanding question, and it is on average between 60 and 70% of the juvenile referrals that will eventually make their way to Pat and his staff in Lincoln and Lancaster County. So that 468 is roughly 30 to 40% on an annual basis. Again, something that we're continuously tracking and looking for the most appropriate venue. But I think too that I really want to circle back to some of these preventative strategies and some things that we have implemented at the Lincoln Police Department that aren't complex, although they are things that we're fortunate. You know, we're an agency of approximately 500 people, about 358 commissioned. And we are fortunate once again to have a very robust crime analysis unit that's providing all of this analysis, this data. In addition, we have one incredibly talented officer whose passion and educational background is on evidence-based practices. His formal education is in public policy research, and he incorporates in legitimately an army of unpaid interns and volunteers to do all of his upfront analysis. And so those are 2 different factors that we're looking at. But going back, some of the things that we're doing on the preventative end is that we have 12 school resource officers. We have 12 school resource officers, 6 of which are full-time assigned to the 6 Lincoln Public School high schools, and 6 which are assigned to the middle schools. And as a complement to them, we have a full-time threat assessment officer. And when we look at the number of social media posts that are coming forward for a population, of over 42,000 students and probably another 7,000 to 8,000 faculty, we're talking about hundreds of cases that he is assessing on an annual basis. He's doing that with the school resource officers, with the administrators for the particular building they're coming from, and then with the leadership from Lincoln Public Schools. And of the hundreds, there is less than a handful of these particular circumstances where there are criminal components to the threats that are actually being referred, much less lodged. And how are we doing that? We are taking strategies, some of which Denise and Bob have talked about, others which Pat are talking through in trying to safety plan at the school, work with the resources within Lincoln Public Schools, work within the mental health and substance abuse providers that we are fortunate to have in Lincoln. And all of those combined, this multi-purpose, multifaceted approach is preventing that. Now, thankfully, there hasn't been a tragic incident in Lincoln. And I fully recognize that as we speak, that could change. But today it has not, and we'll continue to work towards that path. Another one is this. The Lincoln Police Department works approximately 1,500 youth out of care or runaways on an annual basis. Now, that's the number of incidents, and many of those individuals are duplicated, right? There are one individual after another that is running away from home 10, 15, 20, 25 times annually. And so what we're doing is we have created this partnership. It began in January of 2020, and I'm incredibly proud of how it's worked in that we're taking these high consumers of resources, and we are dedicating a team, a problem-solving team that we are just one member of, but we are able to be the lead on that and trying to dive deeper. Why are these kids out of care? And anecdotally, there have been so many examples that have presented themselves because we are seeing kids while they're out of care that are undoubtedly using drugs and alcohol. They are being trafficked, and we have evidence of that and made arrests based upon that. And they are involved in the theft of automobiles, the theft from automobiles. And really, we're trying to, okay, this is the underlying issues that are occurring. How can we most appropriately prevent that? Because there are other examples too, tragic ones, where these kids are being sexually assaulted within their home or abused within their home. And that's why our partnership with the Child Advocacy Center has been so important. And this is something that we are measuring. We're trying to find which particular response is, although individualized, which has bringing about the most success. And how can we tell that we're making this particular impact in a year where kids have been home more than they've been at school because of COVID? We're seeing a reduction in the number of youth out of care cases. And that is a powerful statement to me, because it's not school that are reporting kids are run. It is their guardians, their loved ones, their parents. And so that reduction shows that it is making an impact to the street officers. And while there's some extra work on the front end, when previously, when youth out of care would be returned, we would cancel whatever existing broadcast and NCIC entry there was. But today, we're requiring officers to go out and do a series of interviews with the kids, trying to look at, hey, what's going on? How can we impact it? Now, some may not be forthcoming or may not be willing to talk with us the first time, but maybe the second, third, fifth, they are. So I've talked enough there. I haven't been following any questions, or I'll turn it over to somebody else.
And I'll just follow up with Jeff on that. You know, one, we're very thankful of the relationship that we have, not only with Jeff and the Lincoln Police Department, but also the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office. We do have some schools out in the outlying areas of the county that we also, the Sheriff's Office has resource officers in. And I think that's important, that you know, individuals like Jeff and like Bob, they get together with Denise and myself, and you know, it's definitely a partnership that you have to have. You have to know each other. You have to be able to work with each other. You're not going to find these by just sitting in your office and listening to things, you know, as they go on. You really have to get out into the community. And that's why I said, you know, we have our attorneys that go out to the schools. They're involved with the schools, with the administration at the schools, and know what's going on. We work with the SROs in the different schools. And I just think that's key. And you have, you know, individuals like Sarah Hoyle in the community that just are huge resources, and they have that there. And I think if you go out and look in the community, you know, and even if you in a smaller community, there are there are resources out there. You just have to look for them, and you can develop them and really make a change in these youths and in their lives.
With that, Pat and Jeff are talking about from a smaller community perspective here in Schuyler, is we're fortunate because of our size and just not the large numbers of missing juveniles, runaways, that sort of thing. We know who these kids are. We know the caseworkers, and you can almost keep tabs, you can have a lot of touches with them. You can see them. And we encourage the officers to really go out of their way to go out and reach out to those kids as regularly as possible. And the school, community response, the team, the caseworker, everyone really can touch base because there's so few numbers, and you can really get moving on it and get them the help they need, really.
So what we lack in effort, or what we lack in resources, we try to make up in effort. In fact, just before this session, the chief and I were talking about having the officers stop over to the food pantry because our kids do community service there. Not just kids who are in trouble, but kids who are there because they want to help their community. And so I asked them if the officers could just stop over and say hello. It's wonderful for officers to congratulate kids when they're doing things right. And I think that that's wonderful. I did want to touch on really quickly, there was a question about, Jennifer had asked, what other community organizations are a part of the problem solving teams? And so I'll take that first, and then I'll turn it over to my chief or Chief B, whoever would like to answer, or Pat. My team here, in order to have community-based aid dollars, you must have a community plan. In order to have a community plan, you must have basically a team who comes together from your community and helps to determine what your priorities are. And as many of you know, we're in the process of rewriting that plan right now. My team, I do my very best to try to keep it very diverse, but our team includes CHI Hospital. Our team includes churches, as well as mental health providers, teammates and their representatives. The schools obviously have to be on there. We have a representative from Cargill who comes and participates in our community team, which I think is huge. And I think Cargill as a private industry should get credit for that. As well as our Chamber of Commerce, our economic developer, the city of Schuyler is represented. Law enforcement is always at the table, which I really appreciate, as is probation and private therapists. So Chief, can you think of anybody else that we have that regularly comes? I think that's most.
You've covered everyone. I guess
go ahead, Bob.
One of the last things I'd just like to maybe mention is something that I really encourage with the officers here in Schuyler is getting involved, really being a part of the community. Most of them don't live in Schuyler, so it's a challenge, but I really try to get them invested either in an activity, if it's just going to a football game, going to a high school event, going to maybe the elementary school and reading to the kids, preschool, getting involved, going to the Heartland Center, volunteering maybe at one of the language classes here, helping out, getting involved. That's important because we really need people in this community, and I think in all of Nebraska, to see us as just regular people in their community, their neighbors, and not just people in uniform and a lot of what they're seeing in the media. So we make an effort of that. And that's one of the policies we've instituted that wasn't here before I got here. So we try to get them involved.
I'll share just a couple other community partners, but before I do this, I've been trying to watch some of the questions, and I think Maggie reached out and asked, how is the threat assessment officer funded? Great question. And I am providing a link right now that I think contains many of those particular resources. The Threat Assessment Officer is funded through a collaboration called the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal Board. It is a partnership between the City of Lincoln and Lincoln Public Schools. And the Threat Assessment Officer is funded mainly by the Lincoln Police Department and subsidized by Lincoln Public Schools, just like the same for our 12 school resource officers are. And we have really developed since 2018 an incredibly structured format that exists on the Safe and Successful Kids Interlocal. And the link contains those governing documents, but it also contains many of the data analysis that we've previously done and that we're in the process of doing. For example, we are, with LPS, have been presenting the most recent data that we have, with the huge asterisk of course, it was a shortened school year in 2019-2020 because of COVID. But there are about 150 pages worth of statistical analysis. That statistical analysis talks about the referrals that we've been discussing, the calls for service at high schools. What kind of impact is the presence of school resource officers having in middle schools, because previously we had not had that. It looks at the disproportionality that exists, and that disproportionality does exist. It also looks out at the disciplinary processes that are separate and distinct from the Lincoln Police Department, and it breaks it down by building. And so incredible amounts of data, and it really looks at how are we trying to problem solve some of the most complex issues which revolve around disproportionality. I'll circle back to the community partners. All of the ones that were mentioned, although we do not have private industry that is involved, I applaud that. And you are right, Cargill does deserve accolades for committing to that particular resource. We have Bryan Health Systems. Bryan Health Systems is a big partner for ours. We have Centerpoint, which is a mental health and drug and alcohol entity. We have The Bridge, which is another substance abuse entity. We have Families Inspiring Families, another mental health resource. We have Cedars Youth Services, once again, another youth resource that we partner with. But I also want to circle back to Sarah Hoyle and Lancaster County Human Services. Jenny Ryan is part of that, that funding. Operation Tipping Point. Operation Tipping Point is a civilian that is embedded and has been embedded within our gang unit. And once again, many of the referrals, so we're depending so heavily on educators and parents and administrators to make those referrals in the infancy. When we start seeing some of these actions, these behaviors by kids, the younger the better. And we're trying to partner with them in order for some of these intervention strategies. And really, I look to our gang unit, which is incredibly small, considering, unfortunately, Bob refers to the small number of violent offenses that are occurring in Schuyler. And unfortunately, that is not true in Lincoln or in Omaha. But our gang unit is taking this approach, recognizing that arrest or traditional law enforcement suppression needs is not always the answer. It is on occasion, and that is meant to address the most violent youth within our community, but also trying to work with families to say, hey, these are the actions that are being observed. This is where we're forecasting your son, your daughter to be if this continues. And we don't want that to happen. And so it is remarkable. I thank Sarah and others for that funding. That is an opportunity. One other, or a couple other partners, is our cultural centers, specifically the Malone Center that exists here. So it's called Taking Pause 2.0, and it is a partnership with our gang unit and the Malone Center with Ishma Valenti and John Goodwin and others, where it is meant to build positive relationships in advance of tragedy. Some of the same concepts that we expect and demand from our school resource officers. All of this work on the front end, all of these community engagement, community interaction events are, in my belief, what law enforcement needs to be doing. And that so much of our work is on the front end, the prevention, the relationships, and a very small component really is on the arrest, the investigation, that kind of thing.
And I agree with everything Jeff's saying there, and I think that also is true with the prosecutors. If you're a prosecutor listening, I think it's true that you need to be involved in those community programs also. That not only helps hopefully stave off the any serious problems, but when there are serious problems, they know you, they have faith and trust in you. And that's a big thing that we have to develop. And we're starting to do that here in Lancaster County. It's just something that I think we all need to do is get involved in those programs so we develop those relationships, and those individuals are more comfortable with us than we just show up at the time when there is a problem.
I 100% agree. Thank you. Chief, did you have anything else?
No, I guess one other plug I would give a shout out to would be our faith-based community. They really show up here and help us with funding when we need help with somebody that needs emergency placement. We have a chaplain that's on call that works with us in crisis intervention as well. And she's a wonderful addition. So those are other resources that partner with us that we utilize a lot up here is our faith community.
If we could switch gears, Ajmal had asked, we're talking about successful programs today, especially programs involving diversity. Has anyone actually written down the path to success that these programs have found? And Ajmal, I'll be the first to admit that I haven't, but I think that that's a great idea. And I think that we could certainly look at doing some of those things.
Yes, and I'm not sure what we have here. I will look into that more with the attorneys in our division, our juvenile division, and also with Sarah, and see if we have anything. And if we do, we'll get that out to you.
Yeah, so some of the things definitely we have quite a bit of information on written down, the analysis that has worked. Some of it is work in progress. For example, the study and research regarding the Youth Out of Care Coordinator and those particular efforts. The continuing evaluation of interactions between law enforcement and kids in the school, that is written down, and that is very formally documented, and that can be found at that particular link. Our threat assessment interactions are something that we continue to evaluate, and we have drafts of where that is occurring. Teresa, I believe, asked a question regarding civilians credentialed who's embedded with the gang unit. Are they there to refer, to mediate? They are there to build relationships and be a positive influence. And the reality is they are not really connected to the investigative side, except in extreme examples. And extreme examples are such as this. Retaliatory acts of violence in the gang life are real. And that is one of the ways that they are working side by side with our investigative staff. They have full access to all of the law enforcement information that we have. And so there is an in-depth screening that has occurred. But in this case, Matt does just incredible work. And Matt has lived experiences that many of us at the Lincoln Police Department do not share. And that provides him, or makes him, an incredibly crucial and critical person within our agency. So that is a good question. Oh, and Matt Baker is chiming in. Hi, Matt.
Yeah, we were going to tell you, Chief. Matt's listening.
Right. Good thing I didn't say anything bad, right, Matt?
Kay had asked earlier, do your organizations track youth and demographics in this system in more than one way? That was her exact question.
And so I'm going to say absolutely with the school resource officer referrals. So it's not only gender, it is not only race, it really extends to free and reduced lunch. So all of those things are being tracked, at least on the discipline side. And that is memorialized in these reports within that link, and ones that'll be posted very soon for the 2019-2020, or excuse me, 2021 coming up. So as far as other ways where they are tracked based upon something other than race, ethnicity, or gender, no. We do not have access to that particular information, but it is incredibly rewarding work and stuff that you would have to partner with a research entity such as Dr. Weiner or his talented staff to gain that information.
Yeah, it is one thing that Dr. Weiner and his staff, we are tracking on a multiple number of levels that we're tracking that. Again, that, kind of make sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and not letting any biases go into those programs, and ensuring that everyone is being treated equally. And it's been pretty, it's been a pretty good project that we've had going, and I think has shown some pretty good results for us. So,
Pat, there's a great
sorry.
Great question that just popped up, Pat. Kay asks, if a referral comes from outside the school systems, are they eligible for SAMI and or Restore? You want to take that one?
Or SAMI, I think unfortunately we've kind of run down on that a little bit. I see Sarah answered that for us, and she says no. So they do need to be in the school, and that's part of it. Is we're trying to keep them in the school, and that's the reason for that program, is to keep those individuals in the school system.
I'll add on the demographics and tracking and data and information. That's something that wasn't happening up here before I got here, other than the required statistical data information that we send off to the state. So I'm really started taking a look at that, and it's something that I feel is really important, especially within my community. I need to know what we're doing, who we're stopping, who we're contacting, what the result of that contact is, and that we're treating everyone fairly. I think that's extremely important. And the officers are aware of that. We're taking a look at the policies, and we are closely keeping tabs on all that data and reviewing it monthly, and comparing it and going back the previous year and trying to review and see how we're doing, and constantly going over that.
We also do bring in a significant amount of training. Because we have such a unique population, we're constantly getting new groups, organizations, different sets of folks who are coming in that we've never dealt with before. And so when we first had our Somali community begin to move in, we asked Lutheran Family Services out of Omaha if they would help us and send folks here to educate us. we open up those education sessions to everyone in the public. It's not just for law enforcement or my office. Cargill sent people from multiple different locations to come in just so that we could educate ourselves better about the different populations and so that we can work with every one of them. For many of our populations, we have to meet them where they're coming from and then work with them. We use our churches a ton, and even our mosques and our local community leaders just to try to bridge that gap between, I was born and raised in Columbus, Nebraska. I do not know about all these different cultures, but I will do my best to study and respect and learn. And I think that's really all we can ask of our officers and our law enforcement.
I kind of want to switch gears real quick. I know we are approaching the end. I've not seen too many other questions unless Denise, Bob, are you, I really want to go back to this incredibly challenging year that we've all been part of, and what are the longstanding impacts. And when we look at law enforcement contacts, whether it is with juveniles or adults, and the structural disadvantage that drives so many of those contexts, I think is going to be worse as a result of some of the things that we've encountered with this pandemic. And so I'm going to try to share my screen here. And what I'm showing you is a snapshot of what we've been studying is a host of different types of calls for service that we analyze on an annual basis. So you'll see in the middle is child abuse. Child abuse as compared to the 5-year average, we're down 7.64%. And for those of you that are deeply involved in the analysis of data, you'll see that these are a pretty large data set, right? We're probably looking at about 200 child abuses that come to the Lincoln Police Department on a monthly basis. Significant reduction there. And we have to ask ourselves why. Why is that occurring when so many of our other incoming calls for service are static? And the reality is this, is the kids in 2020 have not had an opportunity like they normally would because of what happens within the buildings at Lincoln Public Schools and our parochial schools. Those caring adults make such a difference in the lives of these kids, not only for the educational opportunities that they're providing, but also for that safe communication, which is on a whole nother note why I'm such a firm believer in our school resource officers when done appropriately and separate and distinct from discipline. So it's not the fact that there's 7.64% less child abuse is occurring in our community. This is an element of reporting, an element where kids aren't having the same opportunities to come forward. And this is a concern for all of us and something that we've been trying to work to address more appropriately with the cultural centers, and trying to say, hey, if kids are coming to you, please come forward with that so we can work with you, work with the kids, and try to intercede. And I just find that to be very, very interesting information. So.
Chief, we have the exact same concerns here. In fact, we have whole meetings about those exact issues. We know we're not seeing full reporting. And we were really ready for the landslide to hit when kids got back to school. When children don't feel safe, they're not going to report. We need them back with those loving adults in their life, in the schools, who are providing schedule and all the different things that those kids need. Really quick, we're almost finished. Deb asked, is the demographic information identified by individual or by the officer? And I think that's a good question we want to definitely clarify.
Absolutely. So when we're talking about demographic information within the school reporting system, it is based upon the individualized perceptions or beliefs of the officer themselves, right? Because there's basically statutes that say, not particular to this, but definitely to traffic stop data, you don't ask. You don't ask because that's going to cause a greater divide. Now, with the school discipline data, it is because they're able to draw from what is an individual reporting during the enrollment period. And so they're drawing those records from LPS and others themselves. And yep, and you know, the data analysis, especially as we look at demographics, it's so complex, because even as a policing entity for traffic stops, for example, we're reporting to the Crime Commission both a combination of this race and ethnicity. We're reporting to the federal government for victims of crime race, but that race does not include Hispanic, right? That is the ethnicity. And so you don't have that particular breakdown to be able to analyze. And then when it comes back to the self-reporting, what is the officer's belief based upon those interactions? That is more and more difficult as the multiracial or biracial component of our society just grows. That's not accounted for in any of this particular data. And one that we need to be mindful of, because we are so committed to trying to focus on not making a disparate impact or a disproportionate impact now and in the future.
Awesome. Chief, do you want to put in a Chief B? I have two chiefs here. Do you want to put in a quick plug for the next speaker?
I do. I guess I'm looking at the clock on the computer here, and it is almost 11 o'clock. And Jenny, great job in all of your preparation in making these videos. Everything worked pretty smoothly. There's a few hiccups, it looks like, but other than that, that's pretty awesome. So the keynote speaker, Adam Foss, will be in this main room beginning at 11:30. And we're all looking forward to that to listening there.
If you haven't heard Adam talk before, he's very dynamic. He gives a good presentation and has a lot of good ideas, and well worth the listen.
Thank you, everyone, for such great questions and wonderful dialogue. Thank you, Jenny, for teaching all of us how to run all of this and making everything run smoothly. If Jenny didn't get flowers today, she certainly deserves them. And on behalf from all of us at Colfax County, thank you for the opportunity to just talk about all the different things that we're doing and the positive interaction. You know, it fills my bucket to talk about all the good things and to see the people who are truly interested in helping kids. I really believe there are wonderful people out there who want to help kids and make our communities a better place.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Bye.
Good to see you.